What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about a very important topic when it comes to overall health, redox potential. Redox potential is important, and maximizing your redox potential is going to help your body become more efficient in all aspects. So let's get started. What is redox potential? Most of you might not have even heard of what a redox potential is, but redox potential stands for reduction potential. And what the redox potential is it is a measure of how well a system can give electrons, reducing, versus stealing electrons, oxidizing. And this system we're talking about is our human body. And within the human body, you want to be getting as much electrons as you can. You do not want to be losing electrons. A loss of electrons is going to be the onset of Neolithic diseases. So electrons equal energy plus stability in biology. Oxidation means losing electrons, which is going to damage and stress our body. And a reduction means gaining electrons, whether that be from the environment, sunlight, grounding. That's going to be repair and protection. So we always want to be in a state of gaining electrons. We don't want to be losing electrons. And as you can see here, all these things are what redox potential helps. Digestion, cardiovascular system, immune system, inflammatory response, hormone modulation. But most importantly, redox potential helps your mitochondria. And the better your mitochondria are, the longer you're going to live and the less disease you're going to have. So, what do I mean by having a good redox potential? I mean you want to have a high redox, not a low redox. A high redox potential means good health. A low redox potential means poor health. And you want to think about it like a battery. Your body is basically an electron battery. Healthy cells means you have a fully charged battery. Sick cells mean you have a drained battery. To have a fully charged battery, your mitochondria has to continue producing ATP and energy, and you got to be efficient with ATP synthase. So that's why it's important to have a good redox. Good redox means electrons flow easily through your body and energy production works properly. If electrons can't flow easily in your body's going to be less efficient and you're going to be in an energy deficit. You always want to be in an energy surplus where you're constantly getting energy and electrons. You don't want to be losing electrons or in an energy deficit, and we're going to talk about why that's bad. So, why does a high redox, a high reducing power, meaning you're able to gain electrons, mean good health? And this is because a strong reducing environment where a lot of electrons are available for your body means that your mitochondria work efficiently. That's the most important thing. Having properly functioning mitochondria and healthy mitochondria is going to prevent the onset of Neolithic diseases and just keep your body most efficient and running smoothly. So by your mitochondria working efficiently, that means the electrons are able to move through the electron transport chain properly. There's less electron leakage. You're not losing electrons to the environment. And you have more ATP and less reactive oxygen species, which we're going to talk about later what that is. But having more ATP means more energy. That's what we want. Another reason why a high redox is good is that the cell membranes stay intact. Fats like DHA don't oxidize. A lot of people are deficient in DHA, so it's very important that they're not oxidizing since you're already deficient in it. And the ion channels function properly and our neurons stay sharp. Another reason why we want to have high redox is that the hormones in our body and neurotransmitters will behave properly. Dopamine and serotonin synthesis depends on the redox enzymes. So if we're not having proper dopamine and serotonin synthesis, that's going to affect with our mood. It could cause depression. You don't want to have extremely high serotonin and low dopamine. That's what happens if you don't have a proper redox health. You're going to have low dopamine and high serotonin. That's going to help affect your sleep quality. You're not going to sleep as well. So you want to always have a good redox. It's also going to help circadian signaling staying aligned. Circadian biology is, again, extremely important. You do not want your body to lose a sense of time. You always want your body to know what time it is. So, again, we'll talk more about circadian biology later on, but that's very important. And then inflammation stays low when you have a high redox. Immune cells don't stay in attack mode, meaning they don't think they always need to be on the attack to repair things or support immune function. And then the tissue repair outpaces damage. So any damage done in your body, in your tissues, is going to be repaired quicker than that damage can occur. So why do we have to worry about redox potential, and why does the modern lifestyle lower redox potential? And the reason is the modern world has a ton of redox potentials. And the reason is the modern world has so many things that negatively affect our health. Some common redox killers are artificial blue light, especially at night, but even isolated blue light during the day is going to negatively affect you. Any isolated blue light is going to spike your cortisol, which is going to raise your blood sugar and ultimately raise your insulin levels. So it's going to make you feel more hungry, like you haven't eaten, you're going to have a bigger appetite, and eventually overconsumption of artificial lights, like most of us do and have, especially at night, could lead to insulin resistance, and it's going to ruin our body's sense of ability to tell time. We're going to lose what season it is, and we kind of get this endless summer syndrome because of all the artificial light we experience at night. We always think that the lights are on for long periods of time, like if it was sunlight outside during the summer. So because of that, artificial blue light is very bad for redox. And then other ones are poor sleep, which again is affected by the artificial blue light. Processed seed oils, they oxidize easily in our body, and just you don't want to put something that could be used to run a car. People have tested using seed oils to run a car engine, so you just don't want to be consuming those. There's a ton of information online why seed oils are bad, so we don't have to go too much into that. I'm sure you've seen all over social media that seed oils are negative. Chronic stress, too much EMFs, and lack of sunlight is going to affect your redox. And all of these affect your redox because they cause electron loss. You need sunlight to charge your mitochondria, and that's going to help gain electrons. So without all these things, you're going to be at an electron loss. As you can see here, normal mitochondria function, you want it to be normal, but you do not want to have mutant normal mitochondria or dysfunctional mitochondria. Because if you have a certain level of dysfunctional mitochondria, that's going to lead to disease. So you always want to have properly functioning mitochondria, and you want to avoid artificial blue light. Again, it's just so important, and it's something that no one is able to do in modern society. So even if you can't fully eliminate it, you have to limit it. And we'll talk about some steps later on. Again, this is going to be one of the ways to improve redox: sunlight. Sunlight and redox potential is very important. Sunlight is key to all aspects on life. All life forms need the sun. We cannot function properly without the sun. It's not just light, it's electron support. Infrared light improves mitochondrial electron flow, and UV light triggers nitric oxide release, which is what we need in our cells. Full spectrum sunlight maintains retinol and brain redox balance, and this is why natural light exposure correlates so strongly with metabolic and mental health. And we're going to talk about now how to get proper sunlight levels. So the best ways to improve your redox potential. 1, starting with sunlight. Wake up at sunrise every single morning and see the sun rise. Never miss a sunrise. At sunrise and sunset, the wavelength of light emitted from the sun is mostly infrared, and that's the most healing for our body. Also, getting light in our eyes first thing in the morning at sunrise is going to reset our circadian rhythm and tell our body what time it is. It's going to help prioritize our circadian clock and our circadian biology. In a world filled with artificial light and non-native EMFs, our bodies are always constantly losing electrons, which again means we're in an energy deficiency, we're at energy loss, and we're losing a sense of time. The endogenous clock inside of our body can't function properly, so seeing the sunrise every morning will help fix this. It's like an anchor in your day, an anchor that tells your body what time it is. This is probably the most important thing you could do every single day, and it's also the easiest, and it's free. So get to bed early, get up early, see the sunrise every single morning. You want to have this proper cycle in your body of your circadian rhythm, where the melatonin peaks at the right time so you're able to sleep properly, and then your body temperature peaks at the right time. You want to be warm in the morning, and you want your body temperature to be cooling down at night. All these things need to be in sync, or else you're not going to function properly. Next up, we have avoid artificial light as much as you can, especially at night. Artificial light is terrible. As I said, artificial light just on your skin, not even through your eyes, is going to spike your cortisol and spike your insulin, which could eventually lead to you being insulin resistant and even type 2 diabetes. So you really have to watch out with artificial light. The first thing to do again is to watch the sunset now every night. Watch the sunrise in the morning, and if you can, the sunset at night, because this is going to again give you another anchor to reset your circadian clock. And again, just be outside as much as possible. That's going to help limit artificial light. But again, I understand this. It's impossible to avoid artificial light. So just limit it as much as possible and cover yourself when you have to go in it. If you have to go to work or school or university, wear blue light blockers on your eyes when you get inside the building with artificial lights, and cover all your skin, because skin and eyes have photoreceptors that take in light. So if you're just covering your eyes with blue light blockers, that's not enough, because your skin is also going to be taking in light through these photoreceptors. So cover your skin and wear blue light blockers when you're under artificial light. As you can see, blue light blockers, I have some on right now because I'm looking at the computer screen. And then my tips for this is during the day, you want to just keep the windows open, or at least the curtains open, so you don't need to use any artificial light. And why you want the windows open is windows block most of the light wavelengths emitted by the sun. They block almost all of the UV and infrared. So you want to keep the window open to let that light in. And then when you need to go to work/school, just cover yourself up again and wear blue light blockers. And then at night, dim the lights or use a red light reading lamp whenever you walk around the house. At night, I do things like meditation, reading. I listen to podcasts without looking at my phone, so I don't have to look at the screen, or hang out and talk to my family. So what I do is I always just walk around the house with the red light reading lamp. It's not very bright, and it is also flicker free, which is very beneficial. Number 3, for how to improve your redox potential, is prioritizing sleep every single night. Not sleeping leads to so many forms of disease. You need to sleep. If you go long periods of time without sleeping, your body's going to be much more susceptible to things like heart disease, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and even cancer. So you definitely need to be sleeping properly every single night. And my steps to do this are avoid/limit artificial light, especially at night. Sleep in a cold, dark, and silent room. You don't want any sound, loud sounds, loud lights, or being warm. If your body temperature rises during the night, those are all things that are going to wake you up. So you have to prioritize cold, dark, and silence. And then turn off the Wi-Fi in your house. That's going to help you sleep better, because your body's not going to be stressed out by all the electromagnetic fields that the Wi-Fi router is sending throughout the house. And then, of course, all your phones and devices should be on airplane mode. And don't have anything plugged into the outlets in your room. Unplug everything, or make sure everything's turned off. And then specifically, if you can, get an EMF meter to test your room and the living spaces you're around to see EMFs such as radio frequencies like 5G. 5G is terrible, so you need to see that if you need to put up a shield or something if there's too much EMFs in your room. So definitely test the EMF in your room. And then once the sun goes down, you want to start to calm your mind. Like I said before in the earlier step with limiting artificial light, is when it gets dark out, what I start to do is turn off all the lights. I start to read using my red light reading lamp. I listen to podcasts, or I meditate, or spend time with my family. Again, it's important to block artificial light, because studies show that in mammals, when melanopsin signaling is altered in the central nervous system, melanopsin is what happens when the sun comes through your eyes. Melanopsin signaling is what occurs when your photoreceptors see light. So when melanopsin signaling is altered, mammals lose the ability to catch up on sleep permanently, meaning that when they're looking at artificial lights at night, when it's supposed to be dark out and they're not supposed to see any light, they lose the ability to sleep properly, and they lose the autographic efficiency and regenerative potential for all tissues. That's why sleep is so important. They also lose the ability to tap into Becker's DC current. Becker is a popular scientist. You should look into his work. But DC current, we all have a DC electrical current in our body that helps electrons move and helps signaling, so we don't want to lose that current. If you lose that current, it means you have a very bad redox potential. And it also means your tissues are deficient in DHA. And that's why a lack of sleep often leads to disease and early death. So again, we need to really prioritize sleep. Sleep is very important in properly functioning redox potential and mitochondria. Next up, we have cold thermogenesis, aka cold therapy or cold exposure. Cold thermogenesis is really going to help with redox potential. So what you want to be doing is cold showers, ideally cold plunging into a natural body of water. If you have a healthy lake or river nearby, or you live near the ocean, you should be going in there for cold exposure. If not, do supplement with cold showers and then do a cold plunge like this in an ice bucket. Ideally, you want to do that outside. And the goal of doing all this cold thermogenesis is to become cold adapted. If your maternal lineage is from a place where the ground freezes, that means you really have to do cold exposure every winter. Cold exposure is key during the winter, and the reason why is it helps create UV light and infrared light in our mitochondria. When the sunlight is not available and we don't have UV light during the winter, we still need to charge our mitochondria with UV and infrared light, and the way to do that is through cold thermogenesis. Cold thermogenesis or cold exposure is going to increase UV light and infrared light in our mitochondria and create heat in our body. And the proof of this is when you are tanning in the summer with high UV, alpha MSH increases in our body. Studies show that also with cold exposure, alpha MSH increases drastically within our body. So cold exposure is key during the winter, especially if your maternal lineage is from a place where the ground freezes. Meaning, if you're from Chicago or you're from Canada where the ground freezes, you need to be doing cold exposure. It's a necessity. And then cold thermogenesis, one of the reasons it improves your redox potential is because it improves the flow of electrons on the surface of water and proteins without any energy costs. So what that means is cold exposure makes electron tunneling more efficient in your body, and it's going to also make your mitochondria more efficient. It also increases magnetic flux in your tissues and correlates with good mitochondrial function. This is why hypothermia is employed in brain and heart injury cases clinically, because it changes the density of water, allowing water to carry more oxygen to our cells, and our cells need oxygen. That's important. Cold therapy, like I said, creates UV light inside of your mitochondria, which is very important during the winter because there's no low UV light from the sun. So again, you need UV light and infrared to charge your mitochondria. Mitochondria function is essential for everything in your life. So cold therapy is key. And then another additional supplementation you could do besides cold plunges and cold showers are the Fournier effect, which is using warm and cold water. Most athletes or people know this as contrast showers. You start with a warm shower, then you turn the temperature to freezing cold, and you repeat this process. Next up, we have you want to be eating a diet that consists of high quality marine and animal proteins. You want to eat a very nutrient dense diet, but specifically from animal foods. This is going to improve your redox potential. And you also want to have a lot of collagen in your body. That's directly tied to the redox potential. So to get proper redox potential, you want to eat a lot of DHA in your diet. And this is going to come from wild-caught fish, fatty wild-caught fish. So fish have the most available electrons because of where they are swimming, which is the ocean. And you want to get more electrons in your body to help your mitochondria and your redox potential. So the wild-caught fish I would prioritize are sardines, mackerel, herring, and salmon. Those are the 4 best when it comes to DHA. But if you get other wild-caught fish like cod, that's fine as well. They're just not going to have as much DHA. And then for collagen, what I like to do is bone broth / meat stock. I make chicken bone broth using chicken feet and chicken drumsticks. I either do that with a slow cooking pot on the stove, but most of the time I use an instant pot that's game changing. It really lowers the amount of time it takes me to make bone broth. So definitely make bone broth, especially for the collagen. You need collagen in your body. A lot of people are deficient in collagen and glycine because they're used to only eating muscle meats. You want to also get collagen in your diet. And then you want to just opt for the highest quality of the animal you can find. When it comes to fish, wild-caught fish. When it comes to chicken, pasture-raised pork, grass-fed and grass-finished red meat, pasture-raised eggs. And then just what I want to talk about with nutrition is what cooking food is obviously going to decrease the structured water. It's going to destroy some of the nutrients, destroy the structured water, and destroy some of the electrons in the food. So eating raw foods is going to definitely help you gain more electrons. Raw foods are more electron dense. The electrons get taken out when you cook the food. I'm not telling you have to eat everything raw, but don't overcook your food is what I'm saying. Overcooking your food, again, especially on an open flame like the stove, could lead to carcinogens and cancer, specific kinds of cancer-causing agents that come when you cook your food. So don't overcook your food. And again, I do think there's some things that should be eaten raw. I eat all my beef mince raw. I get it high quality source. I eat all that raw, and I eat most of my red meat raw. But then there's things I think that shouldn't be eaten raw. Like, I don't think chicken with the skin should be eaten raw, because in order to get that collagen extracted from the chicken skin or the chicken feet, you need to cook that for a long time. So I cook it for a long time in an Instant Pot to extract that collagen to make my bone broth most worthwhile. And then same thing, I eat some fish raw, but sometimes I just bake the fish in the oven, and I bake it at a low temperature for not too long, and this is going to preserve the DHA in the fish. So it's up to you. Just, it's important, don't overcook your foods. Then of course, healthy fats are extremely important, especially in the winter when there's not a lot of things growing in the environment. Ghee, coconut oil, butter, beef tallow, lard, beef suet fat. Again, get the highest quality you can. And then when it comes to diet, local and seasonal diet is the best. You don't want to be eating fruits in winter. That's going to lead to inflammation and harm your mitochondria, because when you're buying fruits, obviously can't grow in a winter climate. So if you're buying imported fruit or tropical fruits from the store, from the equator or from more south of you, they're going to be very high in deuterium, because they'll be from the south / closer to the equator, and your mitochondria can't handle this deuterium without UV light, and we don't have UV light from the sun in the winter, so you can't handle this excess deuterium, and that's going to cause damage and kill some of your mitochondrial cells. So you really need to eat seasonal. Eat as local and seasonal as you can. And for seafood and animal foods that are not local, make sure they are at least from a place that's more northern than when you are. You don't want to eat things from more south of you, because they're going to be higher in deuterium. At least if you're getting something that's more north of you, it's going to have less deuterium. Again, in winter, not much can grow, so diet should be made heavily of proteins and fats solely. You should really be upping your fats. You shouldn't be craving carbohydrates in winter if you're getting outside. If you are craving carbohydrates during winter, it means you're not doing enough cold exposure. Cold exposure is going to lower your carbohydrate craving. So do more cold exposure, solely eat proteins and fats in the winter. And then when summer comes, you can go crazy with the carbs. I'm not saying go too crazy, but as long as it's local and seasonal, you can eat it during the summer. 6. Use reverse osmosis water, spring water, or mineral water for your drinking water. Tap water is terrible. Stay away from tap water. The best option would be if you could find a local spring. You could check out findthespring.org and try to find something near you. I don't have access to a spring, so I use reverse osmosis water, and then I add high quality Celtic sea salt to it, because it's going to add electrons and help hydration, because RO water takes everything out of the water, the good stuff and the bad stuff. So that's why I use high quality Celtic sea salt. I use Malden sea salt, but Fleur de Sel is good, and there's also other great brands you could find. And then you want to be creating electron dense water, and the 3 ways to do this are: put it in the fridge or outside to make it cold, as this is going to increase electrons. You could shine red light on it or put it in the sunlight. This is also going to increase electrons. Or you could vortex it using a vortexer. This is good, but it could cost some money because you have to buy a vortexer. Sometimes I like to shake the water as hard as I can, and it kind of creates like a mini vortex for a few seconds. So do that every so often when you're drinking, and just always keep the water cold, because in nature, the water is always cold. This is going to increase the electrons. Again, avoid tap water at all costs. Tap water is estrogenic, filled with birth control and other terrible chemicals like chlorine and fluoride. You don't want to be eating that. It's going to lower your testosterone and lower your health. So really, drinking water is extremely important. Our body is mostly made up of water, so we need to have a high quality water source coming into our body. We want to properly hydrate, so prioritize hydrating. It's very important. And again, if you don't have access to local spring water or reverse osmosis water, then you could buy mineral water at a store. But over time, getting a reverse osmosis filter, over-the-counter filter, will probably save you money instead of always buying mineral water at the store. And then ketosis also improves your redox potential. Ketosis is when you're burning only fat for energy instead of carbs. So I'd recommend trying this out and seeing how your body feels with no carbs. And I'd recommend doing this in the winter because it'll be easier to get into ketosis since no carbs are local to your environment if you are from a cold place. So you should not be eating those carbs in the winter anyways. So that's why I recommend you doing this in the winter. See how you feel on ketosis, see how you feel in fat burning mode, and then judge for yourself how your body feels. And then again, just going back to the nutrition, if you're from an environment that's hot all year round, or it's very warm and you have UV all year round, and then there's fruit growing in the winter or carbs growing in the winter, then that's fine to eat those. But you shouldn't eat carbs if you're from a cold place that doesn't have anything growing in the winter. Next up, again, I want to go back to things to avoid to have good redox, because what you're preventing in your life is just as important as the things you're doing. You could do everything right, but if you have artificial light and all these terrible things, that's going to harm your redox. So no artificial light, especially at night. Go back to the first two steps if you need to review this. And then you want to limit all non-native EMFs. All unnecessary non-native EMFs need to be reduced. This includes Bluetooth devices. And then, of course, the higher the level of your network, 5G, 4G, or the device, the worse it is for you. These environments lower your redox potential because you are leaking electrons from your tissues to the environment and you can't even see it happening. So again, lower non-native EMFs as much as you can. Use an Ethernet cord when you want to use your phone or your computer. Keep your phone and your computer on airplane mode and just plug the Ethernet cord in. Again, turn the Wi-Fi off at night and test your house for EMFs. And then you want to stay away from alcohol no matter what. Again, everyone knows why alcohol is bad. It's a neurotoxin. It lowers your body's ability to transmit electrons. Stay away from it. Number 9, lowering stress greatly improves redox. If you're constantly under stress and you have high cortisol, your body's not going to be able to relax and it's not going to function properly. Again, you could do everything right, but if you're stressed out and you don't have a calm internal state, then you're not going to function properly how you should. You do not want to be always stressed out. You want to be relaxed and calm. So ways to do this are meditating, yoga, nature, Pilates, grounding, dancing, whatever is going to make you lower your stress, that's what you should do. Make these staples in your lifestyle, especially if you have evidence of low redox potential. Stress and chronic high cortisol are going to lower your redox. You need to learn to calm your mind and inner state. This is an issue that I had with sleeping. I could not calm my mind down to sleep, so I had to start meditating. I meditate every morning for 25 to 30 minutes and every night for 25 to 30 minutes, and this really helps me reduce stress and lower cortisol. Next up, we have grounding. Putting your bare feet in the grass is really going to help your body gain electrons because you're taking electrons from the earth. So put your bare feet in the grass as much as possible. Even better if you have access to a body of water or ocean, because water means better grounding and flow of electrons. And there's also a lot of great benefits from ocean and salt water. You're just going to be getting tons of minerals from the salt water. So if you have access to an ocean, you should be going there as much as you can and grounding. And then consider a grounding mat / pad at night for sleeping, because that's going to keep you at a flow of electrons instead of at a loss of electrons. And this is more important if you live in a high non-native EMF environment like a big city. So if you live in a high non-native EMF environment, you're going to constantly be losing electrons, so the pad will help you a lot. However, only sleep on it when it is dim or dark outside, because the magnetic field of the earth and because of the EMFs, it's really disrupted the proper magnetic field of the earth. So you want to only sleep on this at night so your body knows that it's time to sleep, and that's why it's getting this gain of electrons and gain of magnetic field. And then again, just be barefoot as much as possible when walking on the earth or concrete. And then I just want to go back, since I talked about non-native EMFs here, limit them as much as possible. But if you live in a big city or a high non-native EMF environment, including Celtic sea salt and having more salt in your diet is going to be more important, because it's going to help combat those EMFs. If you live, and why is that? Is because salt helps absorb UV better. So especially if in the winter when you can't absorb a lot of UV, you should be including more salt in your diet. If you live somewhere like Costa Rica where the UV is always super high, then you might not need as much salt in your diet, or you might not need to add salt to water at all. But if you're in a high non-native EMF environment, you need to add salt. Test it out, see what works best for you. Okay, now we're going to talk about why redox potential is so important in fighting disease. We went through the 10 steps to improve your redox. Now this is how you can prevent disease. Your body fights disease using two main chemicals: nitric oxide, which is a signaling molecule. It controls blood flow, immune signaling, inflammation, and it helps your immune cells decide when to attack and when to heal. And then reactive oxygen species are things like superoxide and hydrogen peroxide. They're used as weapons in your body to kill bacteria, viruses, and damaged cells. These two things are extremely important. We'll talk about that more right now. And then why electrons matter so much is because redox equals electron availability. Like we talked about, you want to have proper energy and stability by having more electrons available to your body. And your immune cells need the electrons to properly signal, kill pathogens, and shut off inflammation once the job is done. If they don't have enough electrons, they might not be able to shut off after they have solved the problem. If electrons are scarce, reactive oxygen species becomes destructive instead of useful, because it's not going to know when to shut off. Nitric oxide signaling is distorted, and immune cells attack the wrong targets. This is how inflammation and autoimmunity begin in your body. Immune cells kill pathogens, and ROS and reactive nitrogen species are deliberately produced to do this. This chemical storm of these two destroy invaders, and this is normal and healthy for your body. But the key is, these same molecules that kill pathogens must be shut down and recycled. This shutdown requires proper flow of electrons. If you don't have a high redox, you have a low redox or a poor redox, the killing phase is going to last too long and collateral damage happens in your body. Cells and tissue that are functioning already properly and aren't the pathogens are going to get attacked. And that's going to cause issues and damage in your cells. And then this shows why imbalance leads to autoimmunity. Just you want to be healthy. As you start to not have a good electron flow, it's going to lead to diseases that manifest, and you just want to have proper nitric oxide and reactive oxygen species balance. You need the balance, or else it's going to result in immune function confusion. Without immune cells, when they lose the ability to tell time, instead of enemy versus the result of immune confusion is immune cells lose the ability to tell time. They can't tell enemy versus self. They can't tell the pathogens or your own cells, and they can't tell if they should attack or repair. And this confusion shows up as autoimmune disease, allergies, chronic inflammation, and more issues. So you just always want to have flow of electrons in your body so that you don't have to worry about this immune confusion. And what low redox means in play terms, and I put a picture of a big city here because, again, high EMF, low redox. Low redox means cells are running on low electrons. When that happens, your DNA doesn't function clearly, gene expression becomes noisy and error prone, and again, your cells can't communicate properly. This leads to faulty proteins, hormone dysregulation, risk of cancer, and immune misfires because your immune function won't be able to signal properly without electrons. And then why does water matter so much? Why do you have to make sure you're hydrated? Again, your body's made up so much of water, and it's not just hydrogen, it's electron storage. Structured water, known as easy water, holds electrons. and it acts like a battery. It supplies immune cells during stress and infection, and this is why antioxidants help. They donate electrons. But again, antioxidants aren't alone. The system needs energy plus structure from the environment. You need your mitochondria to be charged from the sunlight. You need to be doing cold exposure, all these things. You can't just have supplements and antioxidants. That's not enough. Nutrition is not enough. You need your light environment to be dialed in. Here's the contradiction. This is extremely important. Immune defense requires powerful oxidants, and immune regulation requires electrons. So you have to think of it like a war in your body. ROS is the weapons. The electrons command, control, and ceasefire. They're like the captain, the general. Without electrons, the weapons won't be able to shut off, and friendly fire in your cells is going to begin. So now, why does this framework say disease is reversible? A lot of people don't think that it's reversible, but having a high redox potential and gaining a high redox potential if you don't have one is possible and can start to reverse diseases. The argument being made is many chronic diseases are energy/electron problems, not permanent structural The argument being made is that chronic diseases are energy/electron problems, not permanent structural defects, meaning you don't need all these drugs and all these things that the medical industry is going to provide you. You just need to fix your electron problem, your energy problem, and your lifestyle. Electron flow follows the physical laws of physics, not opinions. So if your redox improves, that means your signaling is going to improve, your immune accuracy improves, and the repair in your body resumes. That's why redox is framed as essential to healing. It's not just one factor. Redox is extremely important and central to healing. You have to improve all these things to improve your redox potential. And by doing so, you're going to increase the flow of electrons. You're going to be able to reduce more, and you're not going to have oxidation. You're going to have reduction, which means you're gaining electrons instead of losing electrons. And gaining electrons is going to be the best thing for your mitochondria. And just to reinstate, mitochondria is extremely important. The better mitochondria you have and the better functioning mitochondria you have, the more likely that you're going to live longer and age better. So prioritize redox potential, prioritize your mitochondria. It's essential for overall health. Follow the steps in this guide and let me know if you have any questions.